Hi, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're tuning in to this podcast. Welcome back to Not Your Grandma's Advice. Today, we have a very brief one for you, okay? Last Friday, we talked about some coping mechanisms and calming ourselves, regulating our own emotions. I hope you guys have been using those. But this Friday, we're going to talk about how that looks in our everyday life. Specifically, something I want to talk about is a trend that is really popular right now, okay? Well, growing in popularity, I should say. So a couple nights ago, I was scrolling on TikTok and I noticed a lot of people kept talking about this trend called the Great Lock-In of 2025. So after doing some deep diving, I figured out that the Great Lock-In of 2025 is going from August to December, and basically everybody is banding together and they are locking in on the things that they hold dear or their goals, right? Whether that is a physical goal, an academic goal, or a professional goal, or whatever kind of goal you have, right? And I think that is such a cutesy idea. I adore it. I do. Hear me out, though. I do think that the concept of the lock-in culture can be toxic sometimes. It can be a little problematic or troubling. And I'm going to explain why I believe so, and maybe you'll believe it as well. But before we get into all the nitty and gritty of today's episode, I need everybody to do me a favor. Okay? Is everybody listening? You should be. I want you to go ahead and unclench your jaw. I want you to unclench your jaw, remove your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Okay, great. I want you to relax your shoulders, release the tension that you are holding in them. If you need to, it helps if you roll them back, like so. All right, release that tension. And last, I want everybody to take a deep breath in. Let it go. Great. Now that we have some holding tension out of our body, I can introduce our first way of checking in on yourself during this great lock-in. That is just a really quick, simple way to release some tension in your body before you start addressing what was giving you tension to begin with, okay? So let's talk a little bit more about this great lock-in and why I think lock-in culture can be a little toxic sometimes. I think that our generation coming up with the term lock in is super cute when it comes to taking yourself and your goals seriously. However, I think it brings the idea that you're not taking your life seriously if you're not locked in. Okay. I notice that a lot of times people are saying, oh, you're not locked in, you're locked in if you're not straining yourself. If you're not wearing yourself thin, if you're not literally pulling your hair out and losing sleep over your goals, you're not locked in. Well, pause, let's wait, because that can actually be extremely damaging, not only to your self-esteem, but to those goals that you have, right? So I want to talk about a challenge that kind of started me first believing what I believe about the lock-in culture, and that is the 75 hard challenge. While I think it is a great idea in theory, I think that the specificities of it can be a little damaging, and I'm gonna tell you why. Working out, perfect. Reading, perfect. Drinking your water, getting sun on your face, perfect. Not giving yourself a break, punishing yourself and redoing the challenge from the beginning if you miss a day, I think that is for the superhuman. And none of us are superhuman, even though, I kind of believe there are supers among us. But I think that the idea of having to start the challenge all over again if you miss a day is damaging, because we're human. Things happen, and it would be better if you missed a day to just dust yourself off, adjust, and continue like you were, right? saying, oh, like, it's not good enough, I have to start all over again. I think in that mindset, people want to give up altogether. Say you're on day 50 and you happen to miss a day because you get sick or something, right? And now you're like, well, I don't want to start all over again. So you just give up altogether. I think that drastic, like, ultimatum, the extremes that lock-in culture can go to causes people to feel like if they can't stick it out or push through without giving up or having to start over or take a break, it means that they shouldn't be doing it at all, right? And that can cause them to give up. I think that is something that is toxic about lock-in culture. However, I think it can be something extremely beneficial to taking your goals seriously and applying pressure to them. Now, I don't want people to believe that lock-in culture, or you have to lock in order to be successful. You do not have to bleed yourself dry. You do not have to wear yourself thin in order to be successful. You can still reach your goals on a leisurely schedule in a timely manner, right? Without killing yourself to get to your dreams, all right? Now, what I do believe is that the idea of committing to yourself, I think that's a great idea. I believe when you commit to yourself and you commit to your goals and you show that consistency, that consistency is always key, because you're not always going to be motivated, so you have to be dedicated, right? That consistency, I think, can push you years ahead of your competitors, which I really only think you should be in competition with yourself. And we're going to talk about that in another episode. But when you are consistent and determined and doing all the things you should be doing and practicing them in a holistically balanced way where you're not damaging yourself either, for just a couple months of consistency, you're putting yourself years ahead on your timeline. So I think the whole lock-in thing is a beautiful concept. And I will indeed be partaking in the great lock-in of 2025 from August to December. It's only 4 months, right? Even less, because August is almost over. But here's how we're going to make sure that we're staying balanced during that time. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's so important. Now, I'm not going to make you raise your hand because I can't see y'all and I'm not at school right now. But just take a mental note if this sounds like you or sounds familiar. Have you ever been locked in on a project or an assignment and you are withholding things from yourself until you complete them or get to a certain point? For example, if one of your lock-in goals during this great lock-in is an academic goal, maybe you are studying and you're telling yourself, oh, I'm going to eat after I finish this concept, or I'm going to go to the restroom after I finish this problem, or I'm not going to go out until I understand this concept. Well, those first two are basic necessities. Those are basic needs that you need, right? But I hear a lot, and I used to do the same thing, or, oh, I'll eat when I'm done, or I'll use the restroom when I'm done, or I'll work out when I'm done. I hope that I have some very specific friends listening to this podcast right now. Taking care of yourself allows you to take care of your responsibilities a lot better. Okay? So while yes, studying is super important, especially if your goal is academic, depriving yourself of basic needs is not. For example, imagine if your goal was both physical and academic, right? Say you wanted to build a shelf back there and you wanted a slim, thick waist, all right? Okay. But you also want to be an academic weapon. Cool. But if you're withholding food from yourself until you finish an assignment or until you understand a concept that you may need more time to finish, then you're less likely to be hitting those meals like you need to. If you're studying, not feeding yourself, and then all of a sudden it's midnight and you were supposed to have chicken and rice, and you're like, oh, well, I don't really want to make chicken and rice now because I'm tired and I just need to eat something so I can go to bed. So instead you eat a bag of chips because it's ready and it was there. Now you went over your calories, didn't hit your protein goal. You're not going to get that shelf you wanted. And you still didn't understand the concept because you didn't fuel yourself so that you could keep going in a holistic and a well-balanced way, right? You basically wasted your own time. And you may not have fully understood the concept because your brain needed fuel, and it needs good fuel, not chips, okay? It needs real food. So that is why I think it's important to check in with yourself and make sure that you're not thinking or practicing damaging or harmful practices like that. You know, I think that eliminating distractions during your time can be helpful. So saying something like, oh, I'm not going to scroll on TikTok tonight until I complete this assignment. Great. That's perfectly reasonable. Or I'm not going to go to the club with my friends if I don't finish blank, blank, blank. Cool. The club will be there when you're done, right? The club will be there next weekend. I think those are great things. When it comes to the basic necessities, like, oh, I'm not going to eat until I do this, or I'm not going to take care of myself to this, or, oh, I'll shower when I do this. Like, I think that is where it gets really sticky and damaging, and that is when it becomes toxic, okay? Make sure you're checking in with yourself and you're not saying things or doing things like that, okay? Another thing, like I did at the beginning of this episode, taking time to release that tension out of your body. I know sometimes it's good to release your tension at the time, but it is better to recognize what's causing you the tension so that you can deal with it, right? We want to be proactive with our emotions and the things that we feel in our body. So after you have unclenched your jaw and relaxed your shoulders and taken a deep breath, try to figure out what's going on and what's in your mind when you're feeling that tension in your body. For example, I know that I grind my teeth really bad when I'm stressed, and that could either be academic stress or work stress. At work, when I find myself clenching my jaw, I know I'm a little tense. Sometimes it's because I'm just overstimulated. Okay, I get overstimulated easily already. I mentioned that in a previous episode. And I work in a really overstimulating profession, all right? When I feel myself getting tense, I take a deep breath, I unclench my jaw, I relax my shoulders, and then I figure out why am I overstimulated. Is it all the sounds? Is it the fact that people are calling my name 50, 11 million, 1,000 times? Is it the fact that there are too many lights or motions going on at the time? And sometimes I just do a hard reset, either for myself. I step out for a moment, collect myself, get some silence, and then I go back in, ready to teach. Sometimes it's a little harder, and I can tell they're overstimulated as well. So I will do a hard reset in my entire class. We will all sit. I will dim the lights. We will do a meditation together. My kids love meditating. Sometimes it's not even for them. It's for me. Sometimes I need the meditation. I need them to calm down. But every time we're done, they talk about how much calmer they feel. They talk about how much happier they feel. And you can tell in their behavior. They're quieter. They're more focused. It helps, right? Getting rid of that tension at the time. However, when you notice that tension in your body, it may not always be something that's going on at that very moment. Sometimes it's just something that you're thinking about. For me personally, I know that I have a lot of really big, exciting things coming up these next few months leading into the new year. Those are constantly in the back of my mind and constantly on my subconscious, okay? And because they are such big and like important or exciting things, I'm constantly thinking about them and how I could be working on them or what I'm going to do when blah, 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 and woo, 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 op da bam, right? Cool. But if you're not actively working on those things, they don't need to be living in your subconscious causing you stress. I know sometimes if they're really important, like you have a big deadline coming up, or you're excited for something, or you're nervous, like you're going on a first date or something as simple as that, right? Write it down. Write down whatever is in your subconscious that you're just now realizing and you're bringing it to the front. Write it down and stick it somewhere where you can refer to it. Then release it out of your head. Okay? A lot of times we're thinking about those things over and over and over again, either because we don't know how to deal with them, we haven't yet dealt with them, or we don't want to forget to deal with them. Okay? Writing it down allows you to think about it when you see it and then leave it alone if you're not going to actively deal with it. It also makes sure that you're not going to forget about it, right? They may be big, exciting, or important, and you don't want to forget to deal with it, okay? And that is okay. Write it down, stick it somewhere, and take it out of your mind, okay? It helps relieve a lot of that subconscious stress that you are holding on to. So those are just going to be some simple things that I want y'all to do if you plan on partaking in the Great Lock-In of 2025, okay? And if you're not participating in the Great Lock-In of 2025, these are just great things to do when you're living your everyday life. And you can combine them with those coping mechanisms and coping methods that we went through in our last episode. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, be sure to go check out that last episode, recently posted last Friday. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and tell your friends. We will also be on Instagram. You can check us out at NYGA Podcast, okay? That being said, I want you guys to comment down below if you are going to be partaking in the Great Lock-In of 2025 and tell me, is your lock-in going to be academic? Is it going to be professional? Is it going to be physical or something else altogether? And if you're not partaking, let me know what you liked most about this episode. Okay? In the meantime, I will see you. I'm proud of you. I adore you. Thanks for doing the work. I'll see you next time. Bye.